Good morning, everybody. It is January 8th. Welcome to the Greater Victoria Real Estate Show. I'm Jane Johnston, and I'm here with...
Hey, everybody. Andrew Plank here with Royal LePage.
And
Jen Lowe, mortgage broker with Dominion Lending Centers Modern Mortgage Group. Happy New Year, you guys.
Yeah,
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
How's it going? How were your holidays?
Quiet for
Busy.
me. Yeah,
Oh.
Busy for Jen.
Busy
Excellent.
for me. I had a couple closings right before Christmas, and then a couple financing conditions to work through that I'm just working on right now. So it's been busy.
Awesome. Well, let's get started. First of all, what do you think the stats are going to project for this year, Andrew?
The stats. What do I think? What do I think for the coming year? Well, I was just talking to a colleague about this today, and we were feeling pretty positive about the coming spring market. You know, we've had higher inventory for a while, and I just think that the status quo is ready for buyers. Been waiting a while for the right inventory to come up. I think once the right houses are coming up, we'll start to see them selling. So I'm feeling positive about the spring. Not like amazing spring market, but definitely a good, positive, balanced spring market.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jen?
I'd say it's going to be a pretty stable market. I think for buyers that getting in early here in 2026 will provide some opportunity, less competition than in the spring, and pretty stable pricing. And for sellers, realistic pricing and strong presentation matter more than ever in the current market that we're in, I would say.
Yeah, well put.
Yeah. And for those that have a mortgage coming up for renewal, there's lots of those out there. Definitely managing payments and reviewing mortgage options will be really important going into this year.
And I just want to say, having placed a mortgage in December, that it is a very picky time. They are asking a million questions right up until the very end of the day, on the day of completion. And I would say I'm probably a good bet for, someone to lend money to. But, the bank didn't always think so. So just saying, you never know. And have your ducks in a row before you go in for your offer. Right?
Do you guys find that, the time something tends to take is sort of a factor of how long they have to take to make the decision? So in other words, when it's not that busy for them, they're going to be a lot more picky while they're making their decisions. Whereas if they've got a lot of stuff on their desk, they might be moving through these things a lot more quickly.
Yes. In this case, though, what happened was the closing came up unexpectedly because it was a completion of a new construction. So.
Okay. So suddenly you had a longer closing, and then suddenly it turned out to be you needed the financing much more quickly than anticipated. And so you had to go to the bank and say, please.
Well, we were aware, but we weren't aware of the dates. Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
So my prediction for this year is we are going to maintain our balanced market. And when I look at what we're, how we're doing, I think we're doing well. I think we're doing well compared to the rest of the country. I hear what's happening in bigger cities like Vancouver and Toronto. Yeah. And I'm just thinking, I think we're a bit insulated. I think we came through a rough patch this year with the BCGR EU strike, which I didn't really anticipate. But I think that, I think it had a little bit of a ripple effect, especially in the condo market.
Certainly having the strike happening meant that there was a lot of uncertainty for a good portion of people in Victoria. And I wonder if that relates, you mentioned, I just wanted to actually comment on that, the insulated. Why are we insulated? You said we're insulated here, and we say that quite often. We kind of know what that means, but let's talk about that for our listeners. What does it mean that we are insulated in Victoria versus other places?
Okay, well, Victoria is uniquely insulated because we have government, so we have steady income from government all throughout the year. We have universities and colleges. So we have Royal Roads, UVic, and then we have Camosun College.
Awesome. Yeah.
We also have prisons, which require a lot of maintenance and care. And then
Unemployment.
A lot of schools. So we have private schools that attract people from outside of the local area. So all this combined means that we have pretty stable economy. We also aren't really focused on any sort of goods. We're more like a white collar economy in terms of software and all of that. And we have some people here that are working in Vancouver, or maybe they're working in the States and they travel back and forth. So we have a steady population here. I'm not seeing a lot of leaving, and we also have a lot of housing starts still happening. So that says to me that people are confident in where we're going.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no, I know that the average, not income, but I forget the name of the word, but the actual household value per capita in Victoria is very, very high compared to some other places. We have some very, very actually affluent, wealthy people living in the Greater Victoria area, maybe not next door to us, but in this area. Which obviously helps. And it was interesting what you said, Jane, about, we have a lot of employers here, which helps to provide that insulation. And some of those employers, that's what the insulation is. It's the employers. It's the white collar employers. So
yeah,
we have to
plus
be
we're
aware
a big
that
retirement. We're a big retirement community.
we are.
We've got a great climate. People want to live here.
And they want to
Yes.
live here, so then people have to work here, so that it's a steamroll effect.
Yeah.
Right. So at the same time, there are some really hot markets in Canada. So Saskatchewan is one of them, where I guess a lot of investors are heading over there and buying, and they're affecting the local housing price. I think that those are kind of markets that are going to shift up and down, whereas we're just kind of feels like.
Yeah. Right. So again, insulated, but maybe that's insulated from ups as well as downs.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get to the show. Jen, how are we doing with our financing?
Well, interesting enough, in going back to my point too, or in what you were mentioning too, Jane, with how busy I am, a lot of my busyness is dealing with a lot of things behind the scenes, having some arguments that I don't necessarily want to, asking for additional documents from clients, which I hate coming back and having to ask for additional documents. But more and more, it's just lenders are getting pickier and pickier. And what you have access to online through your online banking or through your phone doesn't necessarily capture all the account numbers and your name and everything that the lenders are needing to cross-reference. So it creates a lot of extra work and things, as you were saying, lenders are being very picky. An example that I was dealing with yesterday is that we needed to do a verbal verification of employment. And the employer required a written confirmation provided to them that they can disclose the information to the lender, which I'm going, that's just ridiculous. If the person is asking their HR department for an employment letter, how is that not constitute written confirmation that they want? Yes, like we go around in circles and we play these games, but it can cause delays and can causes extra work. So that's just the joy, just an example of some of the joy behind the scenes, and where I'm pulling my hair out sometimes. But
you are also at that level of experience and in your career where you can sometimes push back and say, can you tell me why you need this? Because sometimes it's a clerk who's just trying to fill in a blank.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Agreed.
I do that very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like that's a big part of our job sometimes, is questioning the why, or or redefining, what else would work for you, because this might actually be more of an ask, and is this also not something that could work? And
The other, so as a realtor, I think that's true as well, that there could be times when people try and pull one over on you and you say, oh no, I'm experienced here. We're not going there, buddy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, and as far as the mortgage rates go, I mean, we've got a pretty stable market. Not seeing much change interest rate wise over the last few weeks. We have the first Bank of Canada meeting January 28th. As it looks so far, there's not a expected decrease in rates, and they're probably going to keep them steady for now.
Okay, awesome.
Okay.
I think so too.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the stats here. All right, 7-day market watch.
Yeah. So in this week, which is again, we are first week of January, not expecting a lot of action. So this week we had 105 properties listed, compared to December.
The first week in December.
The first week in December, there were 229. So obviously, and even in December, we don't expect a lot of action. We've seen some days where we get 105 new listings. So anyway, 51 new pendings this week versus 124 the first week of December. 32 price decreases. Wouldn't anticipate many price decreases here in this first week, but we did get 32 of them versus 130 back in December first week again. 223 properties expired though in the last 7 days. And again, that's very likely that they were kind of straddling the December, January time, versus the 68 that expired in December of last month.
So here's a pro tip for you. If you're a listing agent, is don't expire your listing on December 31st, because I can guarantee you it'll be hard to get in touch with the sellers. But if you look at the new listings at 229 and new listings at 105 and expired at 223, some of those people are going to be relisting. So the numbers are going to come up on new listings as the expireds also go down. All right, so our list to sale ratio this week is at 48.57%, which is pretty good. And that's based on activity that's happened over the last few weeks. And that's lower than, and this is expected, what happened the first week of December.
Right.
And then net unconditional sales over this month so far, we're at 12, which is expected on just a few days into the market. That's compared to 422 for January of 2025. And new listings were at total of 52. This is as of Monday. So that would have been really just like a couple of days. And that's compared to 1,172. So if we look at the market where we are right now, we're expecting a lot more listings to come up on the market in the next little while.
And just a reminder too, that these numbers, that sounds like a huge difference, but of course we're comparing the first few days of this month versus the full month of the prior year. So we're not talking about completely apples to apples here.
Yeah. And total active listings right now, we're at 2,314, and that's compared to 2,396 for January of 2025.
Okay.
All right. So let's do our annual market update. Woohoo. Andrew, you want to take it away?
I mean, for those of you listening to us, I'm looking at a graph that shows total active MLS listings versus the month. And so we generally see, we're looking at a 2-year span, and we see that the market, the number of listings tends to ramp up as we move into spring every year. And we've seen that. We saw that in 2024. We saw that in 2025, and we will see it again here in 2026. Right now, this graph ends at December of 2025 at kind of the low point that you can see also was the low point in 23 and 24. So we're going to expect to see a similar graph again reaches a peak in the spring, starts to come down a bit in the summer, bumps slightly in the fall, comes down again. And that's fairly typical. We have had atypical years, but if things follow the past pattern, that's what we'll see again.
Yeah, the hump is almost identical in
It
each
really
year,
is.
but we are seeing though an increase of like an average of 3,300 last year, and this year we're probably around 3,650, 3,700. So our average number is being higher, I would say.
Right. So what Jane's saying is that the most recent hump of last year went a little higher than the year before. So we ended up more active listings on market over time, but the shape of the listing curve remained the same.
Yeah. And then this is total new listings and total MLS sales. So what Andrew's saying, you can see in the bar graph going up that we're peaking in May of every year. But we're seeing new listings were quite strong at the beginning of last year. And I think that's because we had a great end to 2024. Everyone was feeling really positive. But the sales after what was happening with the US, the sales did not follow the listings. So we had quite a large list to sale ratio in July of 2025. We had 800 sales and 1,800 new listings. And the year before we had 800 sales and maybe 1,700. And that makes a big difference if you're looking, those houses are remaining on the market longer. So again, we had the bump in September with a lot of new listings going up to around 1,600. And we had that second, I call it the little season, happening in the fall. And of course, I always say to people in December, if you're on the market and you're listed, there's a high likelihood you're going to sell. And you can see that we were around 400 list to sale ratio.
Okay. Thank you, Jane.
1-to-1. Okay, go ahead. Andrew,
so
absorb.
Now we're going to looking at our list to sales ratio, our absorption rate, telling us, for every listing that lists in a week, how many sales in that same week are happening, and what's the percentage. And if we have about a 20% list to sales ratio, we are in a balanced area. And we've been cycling around, over the last couple of years within mostly the balanced range. We were flirting with a seller's market in March, April of 2024. We, dove down a little lower in August 2025 to getting closer to a buyer's market. But we've still remained within this range of 17% to 28% balanced. Currently, we're at the 20% balanced. And from what I'm hearing, from what I'm seeing from others as well who are doing other reports, the consensus is generally that we are pretty centered in a balanced market at this time.
Right. And what that means for a buyer is that they have a perception when they go out to view that not everything is that they're requesting a viewing for is sold right away, like it was during COVID. Maybe during COVID, you could see 1 of 10 properties. Now, if you're requesting 5, which I did on the weekend, you can see 4 of them. So there's no sense of urgency there, and people are taking their time. So what this means as a buyer agent, sorry, one sec. What this means as a buyer agent is it means that agents are calling up after and saying, how is it showing? Is there any interest here?
Yeah, right.
And what about that, the subject to sale? Are you seeing that?
Yes. Actually, I had a listing where we had a subject to sale, then they had a subject to sale, and then the people before put their house on the market, and they did take a bit of time, and it actually did not go through in this case, and it ended up causing a bit of strife. So
I was just speaking to another agent who he showed a property that I have listed exclusively, but his client currently has an offer on a property that is subject to sale, and but they're anticipating that subject to sale expires mid-January, and he was anticipating that after expiry they wouldn't be renewing, which is why they were looking at ours. And they've had a few offers on their place as well. of his own client's place. So we're in that kind of market that is balanced enough that you can, make the argument for getting a subject to sale across the table. Really depends on what's being sold.
Were they in Oak Bay?
Pardon me?
I said, were they in Oak Bay?
No, they weren't. No, you're safe. But Jane,
no, I mean, if you're safe.
one of the you were saying, Jane, that buyers right now can, so what you said, what that means for buyers, the balance market, what that means for buyers, what that means for sellers, though, is also as Jen and Jane said too, you're going to get those phone calls. Hey, how is that showing? But sellers can't be as entitled as they were when the market was hotter. They need to really, and Jen alluded to this earlier, you need to really be more fixed in on your presentation, on your price, on everything to gather the attention of a larger pool of buyers. There's a larger pool of properties for sale. There's a larger pool of there's a pool of buyers that are less interested or are less motivated. So if you want to stick out from the crowd, you need to make sure that your property is well presented and attractively priced.
I'm finding right now that sellers are there's some who are still sort of thinking that their house is worth a lot more than they realize. Yeah. And in some neighborhoods too, I think that they're really tight knit neighborhoods, and they're like, if we all stick with this price, this is what the price will be. But the thing is that buyers are looking, like often people think, oh, somebody wants something just in my neighborhood, but buyers will look far and wide, and they're looking for value. And especially now, they're very concerned about not overpaying, right? Because we have a balanced market. There's choice. Choice means you're exactly what you're saying, Andrew, that they're going to wait.
There's not the same kind of motivation. There's not the same urgency. So they will wait. They will wait for the right property. They will wait sometimes longer than they should, because they will wait until the market turns around and starts going hot, and then they'll get, swept off their feet and get, missing out on the properties that they should have been buying now. But they will wait, and they will feel like they can afford to wait. And, these beliefs become the reality. It's self-fulfilling.
It's true. Okay, so let's get back to single family homes here. Andrew, you want to take it away?
Again, we're looking at a zigzaggy graph here. This graph uses the home price index, I believe, which is a little bit of a different metric for looking at home values, but it tracks the value of properties over time. And for this kind of imaginary but representative property for a certain market. Jane?
I think it's average. It's average.
This one's average? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So this is just tracking average then. So what we can see is that for 2025, we had a peak in values in April and peak in the averages. And we do tend to see sort of some spikes in the springtime. It also can depend on whether or not there was maybe a $10 million property that sold that month. And that's a rarity for something around here. But overall, it's kind of stayed along that line around the 1.3 million mark. And then it jumped again up in September 2025 and then dropped quite significantly between September and November. And then it's been kind of a flat line just in the November, December range. So it's interesting to see a drop in the average single family home value, a drop to a point that's almost the lowest point it's been. There was a lower point in October, November 2024, but we are predicting for steady, but steady from here.
Go ahead, Jen. You're muted. You're muted.
One point just about BC assessment. So look at the value there in July of 2025. That's the BC assessments that people are getting in the mail. It's as of that time period that your values were set. versus where they are now?
Well, yes and no. So that's a great way of looking at it, but it's the average between October and May. So they're looking, and it's based on July 1st. So they're looking at the sales over that kind of 6-month period. And I do know somebody who was just let go from BC Assessment. They're changing things up there. Anybody with over 10 years experience has been let go.
What?
So
Weird.
things are going to change. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've always felt like there's a strange alchemy with the way that they do the BC assessments, and they have their own secret sauce and mix of how they establish pricing. And but they do, as Jen pointed out, and it's very timely to say that the new assessments are out. It's a new year, but when you're looking at your assessment, it's based on evaluation in the past.
Right.
Yes. So interestingly, I was talking to my coaching group today, and we were talking about assessment. We're talking about appraisals, and we're talking about market evaluations. So assessments are already 6 months out of date because they're based on an average for July 1st. Appraisals are based on what's sold, so not what's currently on the market. And current market evaluation is based on what's happening right now. So if there's nothing for sale in your area, maybe right now is a good time to list the property, because you're going to have a higher likelihood of selling compared to other homes. And maybe you'll get more money because there's no choice. However, depending on what else is for sale in the area, you have to look at that and price yourself accordingly. How is that showing up, and how is it finishing compared to just look at the current data. That's what I'm saying. We're not living in COVID.
No, and we do try to anticipate, whereas an appraisal is more fixed in time. We, as realtors, try to anticipate and overlay the market direction into our evaluation, because ultimately we're going to give advice, and our clients are going to choose a price point that they feel they can meet to make their home sell, that isn't leaving money on the table. So it's important to know, is this a market that's going up? Is this a market that's steady, or is this a market that's going down? An appraiser will just look at the past sales. It's also important to know that, if you're in a condo building and 3 other condos identical to yours are asking, $700,000, and you want to ask $750,000, you're probably going to have to, wait a long time to get a sale.
Yeah. So, ironically, there was a house in Metchosin where the guy was asking an outrageous price of $1.6 million.
Mm-hmm.
And this was in 2019. He was in foreclosure. And so it wasn't him, it was the bank. But over time, the market caught up.
Yeah.
And so over those 3 years, the market caught up, and they actually got the price that they wanted. But that's unusual. This is more of a normal market than we're in right now. This is normal. So it's balanced.
Also, when you say, I'm sorry, but I have to speak to that, because 3 years is a long time to wait for someone to come to your price, whereas you could have sold at value, put that money into an investment or into other property, and made that same appreciation through other investment. To sit there and wait for it is a losing proposition, even if you do end up getting your price.
But this is what people say. Hold on, this deserves full attention.
Yes.
This is what people say.
Thank you, Andrew.
They say, we don't have to sell, we can wait.
Yeah.
And you're like, listen, as a seller, you're going to get actually the best price if you can get your house sold quickly. Whereas if you're willing to wait for a buyer to come in, time is not kind to those listings that are on the market for a while.
Mm-hmm.
No, they're not. And that being said, there's always an exception to the rule. And I always caution my clients to not wait for the unicorn buyer, not that, that unique one of a kind maybe will be out there. Maybe they're there today, maybe they're there next week or next year. But, those people with deeper money than, more money than brains, and are willing to buy a home because they like the home and they don't care if it's overvalued. But that's just
rare.
Like buying a lottery ticket. And it's not a good way to plan your finances.
I'm curious what Jen thinks about this. Like when you have a seller, Jen, who's looking to sell and then buy, what do you say to them when they tell you what the listing price is and if you think it's overpriced? Do you say anything? No, you're muted.
But she's also got to kind of stay in her lane a bit when it comes to the advice on pricing.
Yeah,
but do you,
I don't put my opinion in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what an appraisal, you know, I would potentially make a recommendation. Like if you want to get an unbiased opinion, we could get an appraisal. Or if we're refinancing to purchase, you know, they know what that appraised value is, and that'll tell them if they're overpricing it or not.
And to be honest, I think an appraisal is actually a really good strategy in a balanced market, because if the pricing is steady and we're not looking at a lot of seasonal variations, then I agree that an appraisal will help a seller determine the right price.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unbiased
appraisal. Still, just like anything, you can get 3 different agents giving you 3 different prices. They're all going to be different. I think you can get 3 different appraisals and they will all be different. It is a science, but it's also an art. And it also has to do with the perspective and mood and experience of the person who is performing that service for you. So it's helpful. I don't disagree. It's absolutely helpful, but it's not something I would peg value or weight towards an appraisal as information. I wouldn't say that's my value, because Jane, you and I have both many times seen properties listed where the agent has said, we have an appraisal for $10,000 more than the asking price, and you watch that property sit and sit and sit and not sell for months, because they're saying, I've got an appraisal, look at this, and they're waving it in front of you. And yet the buyers are saying, no, I don't think so.
But the value of an appraisal, though, is that it determines lending value. So it, you know, for a bank, they look at the appraisal. So especially if you're looking at a market that may be, I don't know, slightly declining or whatever, it may be valuable because you can get a higher lending value. I don't know. What do you think, Jen? How do appraisals affect house value during the purchase process when the bank needs to go in and ascertain the price?
Well, I mean, the comparables that the appraiser uses can really have an effect on the appraised value. So if a property just recently sold, or if there isn't many comparables, that will really affect the value. This is a topic we could dive in and would be really interesting to talk.
I think we should dive into it next week. Actually,
I was just thinking that you know, for those of you listening to us, if you haven't realized by now, we have a general framework for our show. Today was going to be our annual catch up. And then we always go off topic and get into some timely discussion. And really, this is just a show for 3 people with some modicum of experience in real estate to talk about things that interest us. So thank you for joining us through this.
Let's get back. I'm the taskmaster here. Okay. Yeah. We're talking condos. So 2 years ago, we were at 550 and we ended at 650. Now we have to look, when we look at these numbers I know in December, especially in Esquimalt, there was a whole building that closed and those prices were all based on 2022 pricing. So that can bring the average up on the sales data. Just so everyone's aware, these are the things that we're looking. So we have to take this with a grain of salt. But if we were to look at the overall average over the past 2 years, we're looking around 600,000, and there's a bit of a bump happening in February of this year. Again, probably a completion of a building somewhere, I'm thinking.
But it's also nice to see, because condos have been especially downtown Victoria, but in general, Greater Victoria condos have been slow, more than flat. They've been, negative. And if we go back to that slide, we can see that we actually had some price appreciation. Sorry, we're on road townhouses. Let's go back to condos.
Oh, sorry.
We have actually had price appreciation after a bit of a downside from that peak in February 2025 over the last few months. So that's a good sign, and it also matches with what I've been hearing in the marketplace is that condos are making a bit of a comeback. Maybe not.
I hope they do.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they deserve to. And I think that if the government ever changes its rules on foreign students, that they will come back and it will be a positive thing. So now is a great time to buy into a condo. Right.
So vacant homes, there were people who had seasonal homes and they maybe have sold them off because they don't want to be paying vacant home tax. It's less attractive to hold a property that you could buy for cash and just sit there with. And yes, then there's also the students that we don't really have necessarily as many of. So yeah, there's a couple hits plus the Airbnb rules that changed. So these are all, and then downtown condos just haven't been as attractive because it's there's just a different community down there. So all those things have been hitting condos, but if you're looking for a good value for accommodation, it's still a great thing to look at. I mean, I don't know why people haven't been as much as they are.
And my pro tip for you, if you're looking for a condo, is to look for something with parking, because I think over time, this is something that's being taken away, especially in the core. They're interested in reducing the number of parking spaces per condo. It's a great investment. So head there. Okay, road townhouses. Andrew.
Okay, I'm going to take this one. And also, this is another one where it really bounces around a lot more. In fact, it's funny because this has actually been fairly steady, other than, December of 2023, beginning of 2023, 2024. And most recently, there was a bit of a dive and then a bump back up. We can see sort of a peak, a most recent peak here in August of 2025, and then dropping and dropping and dropping to November, and then a bump in December. So townhouses are always a funny one. They fit that niche somewhere between a house and a condo. Sorry, a house and a condo. So they are a very interesting product. They tend to vary widely in price, and there's less sales. So we tend to see more variability in the pricing. So this one is a hard one for us to really comment on with full authority, full confidence. But I'm a fan of townhouse living. I think it's a great middle ground for people. But in terms of where the market's going, it looks like overall in the last couple of years, it's actually been really steady.
Really steady. I find I don't actually know if they actually qualify as townhouses, but in Royal Bay, there are townhouses that are semi-detached, or they're attached. They're like in threeplexes, but they are, I just got a text. They're actually considered to be single family homes. And I don't know how they're going to resolve that over time when they share a common outer wall and share a common
I've just
roof.
had a client buy one of those. So they bought new construction. They closed on it in December. There's a party wall agreement. So it's not strata. You don't own any interest in common property. You don't have strata meetings. All there is a party wall agreement, which means that your property line, your building is built right to the property line, and your wall shares the wall with the neighbor. And you'll each have your own wall, but there is a party wall agreement, and you can read it, and it just talks about what happens if there is some damage or there's some work that needs doing and so forth. But it's not strata. It is a single family home. These units that they're selling there have a suite. My clients bought this for investment purposes, and it was good value for a new construction with an existing suite.
Did you buy the end one or the middle one?
It was a middle one. No, sorry, no, it was an end one. It was an end one. They've got an end one.
Yeah, I thought they were good value, and you know, they have a lot going for them considering what else is in the area. It was really good.
But so back to this is these are technically and should not be considered a row townhouse. These are
Right.
actually legally a single family home. So these, although they kind of look like a townhouse, they're not a townhouse from the perspective of the Realtor Real Estate Board, such.
They
Because
look like a
townhouses
townhouse.
are generally
They
structured.
act like a townhouse. They are
It
a
looks like an
townhouse.
actual
Not
strata,
a
it acts like a
townhouse.
strata. Yeah.
Okay. I did not go deep into this because I had a feeling we'd have a fulsome discussion today. So I did not include all the rest of the data. But if you want it, you can ask Andrew or myself for more information on what's happening. There's tons of data regarding the spread of houses in different areas. And so if you like what you're seeing now, please like us. We now have our own YouTube channel, the Greater Victoria Real Estate Show. We have our own website, Greater Victoria Show. Please go and look at what other shows that we've had. And yeah, we are diving in, folks.
Diving into 2026. So if you don't want to reach out to one of us and it happens to be me, you can reach me at 250-360-6106. You can reach me through email at info@andrewplank.com, or the website andrewplank.com has lots of resources. And as Jane mentioned, we do have access to much more detailed stats. If you want to go deep dive, we're happy to send stuff your way. And I know Jen also has her own sets of stats, not necessarily on market, but so there you go.
Yep. Jen?
Yes. I am Jen Lowe, mortgage broker with Dominion Lending Center's Modern Mortgage Group. My cell number 250-217-4925. Email is jen@jenlowe.ca, and my website is jenlowe.ca.
All right. And if you need to reach me, I'm Jane Johnston. I'm with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun. And you can reach me at 250-744-0775. My email is jane@briarhillgroup.com. And you can also email me if you want, or visit my website at briarhillgroup.com. And don't forget to follow us on our Instagram. We are at Greater Victoria Real Estate Show. So we'd love to hear from you. Please message us. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll see you next Thursday at 7:30. And I have a feeling we're going to be talking about appraisals. Ciao.
Sounds like-